Morning, everyone. I'm glad the weather cleared up, so let's get started. Green School loves its art. You walk onto campus and you see it right away. You see it in the murals scattered across the school grounds. You hear it in the music dancing through the open classrooms, and you even see it in the school's architecture. See, I love art too. It's what I'm here to talk to all of you about today. But I get the feeling that the kind of art I want to talk about might not be quite what most of you expect. With that said, why don't we start with a game? I'd like to ask you all to close your eyes and picture in your heads a vast black ocean, crashing waves. I want you all to take that image and come up with a piece of art to go with it. All right, you can open them now. What did you think of? For most of you, I guess it was probably some kind of painting, right? Maybe something like The Great Wave or the Isle of the Dead. For me, it was something a little bit different. A traditional Balinese caress with the rippling pattern of its pamor steel blade, flowing and crashing like black waves crested with silver. See, when I think of art, I think of things like these. I think of the practical and industrial arts. But I'm getting ahead of myself, aren't I? What are practical arts? A practical art is basically any art that serves an everyday material use. Woodworking, metallurgy, textiles, pottery. Arts where we make the things that we use every single day. But before I explain why those things ought to interest all of you, why don't we wind back a bit, and I'll tell you all how practical arts have captivated my attention for the past 4 years. Those of you who knew me back in middle school probably could not have pictured me spending hours and hours slaving away in a hot workshop honing my craft. Let's just say I wasn't the most motivated kid back then. The truth is, though, that I've been watching videos on how to make things since 5th grade, probably before that. Whether it was building a shack in the woods or making a knife in your garage, which, by the way, shout out to Backyard Bowyer, you're my hero. The thing is, though, I never actually had the discipline nor the drive to go out and learn these arts myself. Okay, being honest, back then I didn't really have the discipline or drive to do much of anything. Exercising, socializing, schoolwork, it was all just too much for me. I was a pretty lazy kid. My attitude changed, however, during COVID, when all of our lives were shaken up, and I saw that the good life I was living, yeah, it was because of my parents' very hard work, and it could be taken away like that. So bit by bit, I started trying to take life more seriously. I changed my approach. I started exercising. I lost about 25 kilos. Appreciate it. I also became an honor student, which, let's be real, basically just means I became a huge teacher's pet. Greg knows the best. And most importantly, I started trying to find hobbies beyond just consuming things. Hobbies beyond just video games and movies. But it wasn't until the end of 9th grade that I would get my first real taste of practical arts when I met Pak Ezar. Pak Ezar was and still is a very reserved person. That's why I didn't flick to a picture of him. He's asked that I not show his photo in this slideshow. On top of that, he loves making fun of me whenever I mess up. So when I say that he had constant material to tease me with, trust me, it was a deluge of harassment every single day. But he is a brilliant teacher and an even better artisan. Over my first summer in high school, I studied knife making with Pak Ezar. And from the very first moment, I was hooked. You can see his knife on the left and mine on the right. There's a bit of a skill gap right now, but I'm working on it. From that first moment that I got hooked, I spent every spare hour making knives, and I quickly earned the reputation as the knife nut. who would rather spend time in a workshop than talking to people. Go ahead, get your serial killer jokes in now. I promise they aren't quite as creative as you think. But I want to make something clear. For me, it wasn't about making cool weapons. It was about the process of making something. The joy of creating something physical, something practical. See, I love the interplay between functional and aesthetic design, the feedback between sight, sound, and texture from a well-made tool. And my love for these things only led to me exploring new arts. Woodworking, silversmithing, leatherwork, and I have to mention knitting. Yeah, you heard me right, knitting. Which, if I had remembered to, there'd be a photo of a grandma up on this slideshow, but I didn't. Sorry, Pak George. I actually learned knitting before I even learned blacksmithing. It was my first real practical art. But by now, I'm sure you all have gotten the gist. I love practical arts. Cool. But why should all of you? To the parents in the room, I'm sure you're wondering, okay, how can my kids benefit from this? After all, Greenstones aren't just about me, and my project, are they? They're about Green School. They're about the community at large. See, that was the question I had to ask more and more as my Greenstone developed. Ibu Kate, my other mentor, you're going to find I had a lot of mentors, was pushing me to consider more and more, what could the community gain? Answering that question was especially important because I wanted to fundraise for something. See, I wanted to fundraise to build a smithy, meaning a complete blacksmithing station that the whole Green School community could use. And it was at this point that the venerable Pak Greg Stock, not the one with the PhD, the other one, hopped on board my project. Pak Greg has a background teaching in Steiner and Waldorf schools. And I quickly learned, once he joined the project, the value that practical arts could bring to the classroom. See, in these Steiner and Waldorf schools, students learn classic academic skills, reading, writing, mathematics, and more traditional forms of art. Let's call those two-dimensional skills for now. But they also get very hands-on in their learning. For example, computer science isn't just learning how to use a computer, it's learning how to build one from the ground up. Now, when you first hear that, I get it might sound a little bit wishy-washy, but think about it for just a second, and it quickly makes sense. Here at Green School, we love to pride ourselves on our hands-on, project-based learning. So let me ask you, what could be a more perfect fit than practical arts? See, practical arts let students get truly hands-on. They provide a real-life application for the two-dimensional skills we learn in the classroom. For example, in blacksmithing, students need to use art and mathematics in designing their project. They need to use geometry in profiling their workpiece, and they even need to use a bit of chemistry when it comes to things like heat treatment, making their steel usable. Practical arts serve as the perfect embodiment of hands-on learning. It was with this philosophy in mind that I set about fundraising to build my first blacksmithing station at Green School. It was a process. Material suppliers and finding them, budgeting, everything you'd expect. On top of that, I had to write up a document for the proper and safe use of the forge and get it approved by GSEC, which took a while. A long while. And you know what? I can't even complain to GSEC, because if I was one of the board members and I heard that a student wanted to build, an open, roaring pit of flame in the middle of the school, I might have a couple small concerns. Maybe something like, Green School goes up in flames. No biggie. And I will say that none of my students have had any major injuries or burns. But it wasn't long until we had our first blacksmithing station, a simple, semi-portable forge, a couple of anvils and basic tools, which hadn't been paid for yet. Still, I figured that it'd probably be best if students actually knew how to, use the forge before it became public. So I soft launched the class at the end of grade 11. And with the help of Pak Greg and Pak Ezar, fully launched a blacksmithing Jalan Jalan curriculum at the start of the 2023 to 2024 school year. This first batch of students really surprised me, and no guys, it's not just because they were all way better than I was starting out, but it was also because each and every one of them wanted to make knives. That's right, knives, every single one of them. I guess I'm not so psycho after all. Guys, they're cool, I'm telling you. It wasn't long from here until our vision for the smithy expanded, and we soon had a traditional Balinese-style forge built by a local artisan, 4 high-grade anvils, and more tools than we knew what to do with. Again, not paid for by this point. See, by now students were lining up, fighting over the exclusive privilege of studying under yours truly. But students don't pay. So it was time to start fundraising with the Parent Founders Course, a series of 2 separate 4-hour-long courses parents could attend in order to help pay off the smithy's construction costs. This was the big hurdle, the make it or break it. The forge was already built. It had to be paid off. And we all know that no good greenstone is complete without struggle or without drama. So I'm really sorry to disappoint all of you, because the workshops were a resounding success and we got our money together, no problem. Quickly, thank you to all the parents or just GS community members who hopped on board this project, this workshop. Got it. It was a joy teaching all of you. Now, after the fundraising, we're here. Green School has a top-of-the-line blacksmithing station which parents, teachers, and students alike can use. And for me, that was enough. See, I get that we love big greenstones, and I understand if some of you might feel this is a bit of an anticlimactic spot to end it. It's gone so well, why not fundraise more? Why not expand it? Do more. I get that. And I know that I haven't changed the world. But what I set out to do originally, the contribution that I wanted to make, is completed. I set out to give Green School an exciting new component of its curriculum, which could be reasonably and sustainably funded. And trust me, based off the interest that these classes have garnered, there is a way to keep it funded. At this point, it's up to the Innovation Hub and my student successors to keep the forge burning. Ladies and gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, I didn't come here to tell you all how cool knives and swords and making them is, even though, come on, let's be real, they are cool. Or how cool I am for giving you all a chance to make them. Even though, yeah, maybe I might be. But really, all jokes aside, I picked blacksmithing because it's what I love the most. It's what I knew the best. But this wasn't all about blacksmithing. I've already told you all why practical arts are great. I'm not going to ask you all to abandon your careers and spend your remaining years becoming master artisans, honing your skills in a dingy, sweaty, poorly ventilated workshop. I'm not here to tell you all what to do. But I would like to extend to all of you an invitation. Slow down a little. We live in a fast-paced digital world, and it certainly has its pros, but it is so easy to get lost in it, to lose sight of the little things. And I think that's a shame. See, for every ounce of brilliance in a brushstroke, or for every bit of genius in a frame of film, I think we forget the everyday wonder all around us. Think of the comfort of a well-made piece of furniture, or a kitchen knife that just makes cooking a breeze. The feel of a well-made sweater, or the purr of a perfectly calibrated machine. I think we lose sight of all those things, and that's a shame. See, life's nicer when you stop and smell the roses. And let me tell you, if you're the one who planted those roses, seeded, watered, and nurtured them, you're gonna stop and smell them every chance you get. So let me extend the invitation once more. And again, it's just a suggestion. Take a class, learn to build something. Get that deeper insight and understanding. Plant that metaphorical rose. And once you do, I promise you, the flowers will smell so much sweeter. Thank you. All right, I tried to keep my presentation relatively succinct, and you're gonna see that's because I've got a big thank you list, so bear with me here, guys. I'd like to start with Pak Ezar, my mentor that I mentioned, without whom, I literally couldn't have even gotten started. I never would have discovered how much practical arts meant to me. I'd like to also thank Pak Greg, who, quite frankly, I literally cannot mention everything that he's done for me, but his consistent dedication and care that he's given to helping me through this project. Thank you, Pak Greg. Similarly, thank you to Ibu Kate, who's getting teary-eyed in the audience, for helping me with fundraising, being my mentor in that regard. Without her, my project would have been dead on arrival. Thank you, similarly, to Ibu Penny for connecting me with local artisans, giving me other people to study blacksmithing under, giving me a chance to get more connected with my local Balinese culture. Which brings me on to the Pandai Tapakarya artisans. They're blacksmiths that I studied with. They are the best blacksmiths in Bali, and they are the coolest guys around. I hope they enjoyed the tua, and thanks for the bread and coffee that they gave me. Next up is my classmate Zosha. Thank you for helping me conduct an interest survey for the fundraising of the Forge, even though I did most of the work, maybe. Thank you, second last, penultimate, I got it, is all members of admin, construction, finance, advertising, anyone who helped me behind the scenes to make this project happen. Thank you so much. And last, and most importantly of all, thanks to my grandma, and thank you to my mom and dad. I'm not gonna get too sappy up here on stage, but without you two, I love you both so much, and without both of you, the hard times that made me stronger, like COVID, I wouldn't have ever got through them. So thank you both, and I love you both.